Good Thursday afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns getting ready for a game they simply have to win to keep any slim chances of making the playoffs alive. Down in Cincinnati against the Bengals at 1 o'clock. News out of Berea today. Some guys back on the practice field. Pharaoh Brown, Chase Winovich not practicing at the time during open to reporters. No explanation about that. Denzel Ward back on the field, as is A.J. Green, James Hudson after missing yesterday, Jack Conklin on the side as a rest day. But Ward back, Green back, those guys are going to be needed when you're talking about facing the Bengals with the likes of T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and the like. Let's welcome in Quincy Carrier. Quincy, obviously, their playoff hopes are not great. They need to win this one. It will not be an easy game.
Yeah, it's not going to be an easy game. I mean, you do match up well, and you do have a history of playing well against this team. That always helps because a lot of this is just confidence, right? That you can succeed, and they have seen it happen this year where they can succeed. So, it's not an easy matchup, but in the NFL, you only get one team like the Texans, and even then, that's kind of rare that a team is that bad. So, it's just in college football. UAB can't be on the schedule when you need it. You got to go out there and win some tough games if you want to stay in the playoff race.
All right. Deshaun Watson was much rustier than I thought he would be. I'll be honest about it. You think that's a long-term concern?
No, I didn't really see. It looked like to me, we're going to use rust because he hasn't played in a while, right? But if he looked like this, and he had just had a normal year in Houston, got traded to the Browns, I think he would have probably looked like this, just because this looked like a quarterback in his system for the first time. Remember how scared people were after week 1 about Jacoby Brissett? His first game in this system. It's just, I think guys need a game in a new system in order to kind of get acclimated to it, especially not when they're asked to take on an enormous amount of responsibility in the system, right? It's one thing when you're bringing in somebody to spot start. It's another thing when you're asking somebody to start 11 games or to take over the franchise like you're asking Deshaun Watson or you ask Jacoby Brissett to. And I think that's a different level of responsibility. It takes a little bit longer to acclimate at first. I didn't see any concerns with his athleticism. His pocket awareness seemed pretty good, and his ability to escape is still there. Some of the stuff he has to clean up is his feet in the pocket. He got a couple of times where he took too many steps in the drop and got too deep in the pocket. There were a couple times where he just didn't get a good base when he threw the ball. Those are things that, it could come back in a week or two. It could come back tomorrow. You know what I mean? That's really not a long-term concern. I didn't think anything I saw there looked like the same concerns you would have with Russ in Denver, where a lot of that looks like, diminishing skills. Like he's not talented anymore in the way that he used to be talented. Deshaun's still very talented in the ways that he's always been talented. He was even able to get out there and make some of the plays. It's just he just wasn't used to physically having to make those plays under duress. Now he'll have a game of tape and a game of experience to kind of get better at that.
Yeah, and he admitted, there was a lot of emotion going back to Houston where he had played for the first time and getting on the field with his team, the Browns, for the first time. Watson also talked about the lack of accuracy against the Texans and some of the things that were going on with that. He's a guy that's normally really accurate, wasn't against the Texans. Here's Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, it was just more mechanics, just my base and my shoulder playing and my shoulder leverage, keeping that up high, but it was just all fundamentals in that.
What kind of jump? A big jump? Do you expect to make a big jump then?
Yeah, I'm just, like I said, I just continue to work each and every day, keep watching the film, keep going to practice each and every day, trying to, correct my fundamentals, get on the same page with Kevin, get on the same page with my receivers and the offense. And, like I said, just keep improving each and every day. That's my biggest task.
And Quincy, that's kind of along the lines of what you were saying. There are a couple of he's normally a really accurate passer, one of the most accurate as far as career passer ranking goes, active quarterbacks. There were some that just went into the dirt, and it's being sped up and your mechanics being kind of off whack.
Yeah, I mean, like it's stuff like that, right? Like getting used to how long it actually takes versus how long it feels like it's taking, right? We had this conversation before where the first time you got on a camera, 3 minutes felt like 3 hours. You know what I mean? I would imagine that for a quarterback, when you're back there at practice, it's pretty easy to get a count for 3 seconds because it's 3 seconds. But I bet it feels a lot longer when you're actually out there, right? Where it's like, oh boy, did I get rid of it in time? Is it 3 seconds? Because you're thinking of so much stuff and so many more of your senses are going off. So yeah, it's gonna take some time to get used to that. And I thought that it would take at least a half. It seems like it might take a little bit longer than that. It could take 3 games. It could take a game. Who knows where he's going to be at? He's just going to have to take it a week by a time.
Yeah, and as you might expect, that's what the media is asking him. Here is Watson on why he thinks he will be better against Bengals.
Because I was able to get the feel of the game and the speed of the game and how defenses, adjust, how we going to be able to adjust at the same time. It's my first time in a live action with Kevin. So, he's got to feel how I feel, I got to feel how he feel, and we got to be able to work on the same page and see the same thing through the same lenses. So it was fun to be out there, excited that we got the team win, and, we're looking forward to try to get another one this week.
And that's an important piece of this, that he and Kevin Stefanski kind of understand each other. And I think Kevin Stefanski got to look at him, so he will have some plays that he thinks suit what Deshaun wants to do and is able to do really well.
Yeah, and it's like what the other is going to see when they see certain coverages, right? Like, okay, he's going to want me to make this adjustment, right? Like the one interception he threw, I bet the adjustment will be either, some coaches will tell you, hey, if you see that on cover 3, you might want to check out of it and just run the ball in that situation because it was like first down, I think. Or they'll say, hey, if you're going to run it, I feel fine with you running that, but let's make sure we're more disciplined with our eyes to move that safety to make him commit because he threw it before the safety committed, which is how he got that pick. So, there's adjustments like that are different with every team, and you have to know what to anticipate. It's also just good to know, right? Like to him, it was kind of like a first day at work, and you know how weird it is at a first day of work to where it's almost not work most of the time because you just got to spend that time introducing yourself to people, getting to know how different processes work before you can really be thrown into the fire. He had his first day of work, in March? I mean, not in March, but yeah, in March. And then now he's not going to get his first day of like real work until what? December. So it's just kind of awkward. So you got to just get that stuff through. So now he knows, okay, this is who Kevin is in the fire of a game, in a close game. This is the adjustments he's going to make, and this is how he's going to handle things and carry himself on the sideline. And this is how I can make sure that, hey, if I get a suggestion, when can I give Kevin a suggestion for a play? How do I give it to him? Stuff like that. You got to get comfortable around somebody before you can start, making all of these changes. They got to establish a baseline. I think that's what Sunday was good for.
All right, before we take a break, we're going to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, guys. I love your show. This is Danielle from Manaway, Ohio. I called in a couple weeks ago, left a message about special teams and defense needing to step up, and you guys all laughed at me. No, special teams is important if you want to win games because you never know who's going to go down, and you need to have all the tricks in your box, all the tools. So you guys are like, oh, all you need is a kicker. All you need is a kicker. Well, our kicker's not that great either. So we need everyone to come together. We need defense, offense, everyone. Deshaun is so rusty. It's laughable. The whole situation is laughable. So hopefully the guys pull it together because I really love my Brownies. I've been a fan since 1972. Whoop, whoop, go Browns!
I don't think we sound
What
quite
y'all
like
do to
that.
her?
I don't think we sound like
What
that.
did y'all say to her? She is mad.
I probably laughed because the special teams have been laughable until last week or the week before. But again, Danielle, if we laughed, we were
The
not.
ideal of trying to predict that the special teams and defense were going to give you 21 points. I don't care who you are. That would have been a hilarious suggestion before this game. We did not know the depths in which the Texans were actually bad, right? We thought the Texans were normal normal bad football team. We did not know they were like, oh, no, worse than Hugh Jackson bad. Like, this was like, okay, I remember what it looked like to cheer for this team when they were this bad. And, oh, boy, like, that was a cold reminder to everybody here who tries to tell you that, oh, this is just as bad as the 0-16 Browns or that this is 0-16 Brown level. No, dog. That's 0-16 Brown level. Kyle Allen throwing an interception on a screen, getting a fumble 6 on a QB sneak. That's 0-16 right there. Honestly, that's what that was.
They already won a game and they tied one too. So think about that. That team has a win and a tie.
They beat a team, and they replaced their head coach with Jeff Saturday. That's how bad the Texans are. Like, that's how bad. Think about that. They beat a team, or they tied the Colts or something like that. Yeah, I think they beat the Colts. They beat the Colts, and they beat the Jaguars. And, like, do you feel good about any of those two teams right now? The futures of those two teams? No, they are horrible. And I don't know what they were with Davis Mills. I'm going to assume they were better with Davis Mills. But the Kyle Allen, he can only be out there for one reason, and you cannot convince me he's out there to win football games. He is bad. I've watched some Baker Mayfield games, and he's the worst quarterback when it comes to QBR this season. Kyle Allen is much worse. Take that with whatever you want to take it with.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside. Danielle, we love your voicemails. We were not laughing at you. We were laughing with you or about the Browns special teams because up until Sunday they were laughable. All right, we're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Quincy and I are going to start talking about the Browns defense and Myles Garrett. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier, host of Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Steve Lannon, I know the subject's come up before, but especially against Cincinnati, I wonder why they don't put Myles in different positions on the defensive line to really scare Cincinnati. Thanks. Love the show.
Appreciate all the voicemails. Quincy, I'm with him. Right now, Myles is so much better than the other three guys. I change up where he's coming from, so you got to figure that out if you're the offense.
Yeah, they do that, though. They do that. They've been doing it all year with him. There's only so much you can do with that because, again, if you take Myles out from edge, and it's kind of a putting Greg Newsome at the slot kind of situation to where you have noticed that Greg Newsome's really good, but he can only be but so good at that slot corner position because that's just what that position is. Same thing with D tackle. Like, you can put him there, but he's going to be a little bit more effective at edge. The better solution is just have people play at an acceptable level at that defensive tackle because you'll just be a much better team there. But, yeah, with this week, I would say you want Miles matched up on Jonah Williams as much as possible because he has Jonah Williams' number, right? The days where you want to move around Miles is when he's playing somebody who has his number a little bit. I think they did it last week because Laramie Tunsil is a little bit more athletic at tackle. Well, he's very athletic at tackle. So he's not going to be as much as a punching bag for Myles Garrett as Jonah Williams. But this week, when you're playing Jonah, you want to go at Jonah. If you Miles.
All right, take a look at this. Quincy tweeted this out just not too long ago. So Browns 5-1 against the Bengals, and since 2017 when Miles plays, 1-2 against the Bengals. So there's a little bit of a matchup problem. I'm with you. We do know that, and Miles seems to know that, and really it kind of feeds on itself when he gets rolling early against the Bengals.
Yeah, and it's the thing that funnels through too, right? The Browns don't really play a ton of blitz packages. They really make you wait to take those shots. Joe Burrow is somebody who wants to take those shots early, so they funnel you in that way. Also, when Myles Garrett is doing his thing, and honestly now it's at the points where teams are going to game plan for it before it, so he's going to have an impact no matter what he does. You have to take away a tight end. You have to take away somebody from that would be running a route out of there, and then all of a sudden now instead of 4 receivers spreading the defense or 5 receivers spreading the defense, you're down to 3 or 4, right? Which makes the corner's job much easier. And when you have 3 guys like Greg Newsome, Martin Emerson, and Denzel Ward, plus JOK, who can cover with the best of them from that linebacking position, then you see why they match up well, because Miles forces the secondary to be in a better matchup, and Miles is already going to be in a good matchup for himself no matter what they do. So, yeah, that's the problem, right? You take Myles Garrett out the equation, we probably have a pretty normal record against the Bengals, but the way that they are built systemically is part of the reason why the Browns can attack them as well as they do, because they happen to have a generational player at edge who also happens to have, for whatever reason, the edge on their tackle.
This kind of gives you a little bit more meat to that. So highest pass rush win rate against any single opponent since 2017. Myles Garrett against the Bengals is the best in the NFL. 32% win rate. Aaron Donald, heard of him a little bit, against the 49ers. That's in their division, 30% win rate. That kind of reinforces what we have just talked about. So take a listen to this. The question is, how do the Bengals offensive linemen feel? Ted Karras on how to deal with Myles Garrett, the success he's had, as well as the success the Browns have had against the Bengals.
We didn't do what we've done in the past couple of weeks here, which is try and neutralize their great playmakers. And obviously he's a dynamic player. So we're going to be focused on him. Obviously we're going to send him, the attention that he deserves because he can, bust up the game a little bit. So, we're going to, practice hard, and it really all comes down to technique too. You can't freak out when you play a dynamic player like that, but, we're going to give him the attention he deserves.
One thing, Ted, that Sam said just a couple moments ago was after that game, the team collectively had to look themselves in the eye and say, that's not who we want to be coming out of the bye. We can be so much better. How did you take that message?
I agree, saying that it wasn't who we want to be. I mean, that was a tough night on Halloween. We know we had one more game after that till the bye, and, we've done a good job since then. I think it comes down to the effort and attention to detail that we're preparing at, and guys being ready to perform their best when it counts the most on Sunday afternoon. So whatever the routines these guys have been doing, we need to keep it up. Everyone's kind of gotten in the flow of a season here. And now as it winds down to the crunch time, we really need our best performances.
And that offense, and especially that offensive line, has played significantly better for Cincinnati since that loss to the Browns.
Yeah, they haven't gone up against a Myles Garrett, though. Like, they did do well against, like, T.J. Watt. And I say that because even T.J. Watt, you got T.J. Watt on the right side of that offensive line going up against Lael Collins. Like, we know what the problem is with the Bengals offensive line. That has not changed. And, like, they can say all the things they want about we're going to pay him the attention he deserves. The fact is, Myles Garrett's been a beast since 2017. That has been a very long time, right? It's not just now that we're discovering Myles Garrett is good. So if we think that they weren't paying attention to him any other week before when he was putting up these monstrous numbers against the Bengals, then we're fooling ourselves, right? Like, that's not going to be the magical solution, which is, hey, we're going to finally pay attention to the other team's best player. That sounds crazy for me, for anybody to say when you're talking about somebody's 7th meeting versus your team. The solution for them, it's Jonah Williams has to play better. And I don't know if this is a matchup that Jonah Williams really, like, is there anything you can really do to help him schematically if you're the Bengals, just because this is their system, right? Like, this is ultimately what they do, which is spread it out. They're not a run-heavy system like the Browns, where we can always keep an extra guy in, because that's what we do. That's how we plan everybody getting open based off of that. They don't do that. They need those 4 or 5 guys out there. So, again, this is going to be onus on the Browns to take advantage of those matchups when they happen early, especially, and then do what you can on the offensive side to make the margin big enough to force them into those matchups for the rest of the game to maintain that lead.
All right. What are your thoughts about the Browns' defense? I know you've addressed this on Untitled and Unfiltered. What do you think of the Browns' D?
I think it's a mirage, to be honest with you. I think we could be in for a pretty big mirage here, where you keep the Tampa Bay Buccaneers under 20 points, which is great. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers barely ever only get over 20 points in the season, so you kind of just held them to average. You held the Texans to 20 points. I already went over why the Texans might be one of the worst teams, offensively at least. Defensively, I think they're a solid team, but offensively, they are awful. Capital A. Awful offense. This week, you go up against a team you match up with well, and that you have a history of game planning with well. And then the next week, the same kind of situation with the Ravens, right? So we go through 4 weeks here where we're like, hey, man, the Browns really figured out something defensively. Maybe we should have fired Joe Woods. And I'm here to say I believe this to be a mirage. We will see what we see at the end of the year. But, I have a hard time buying after what I saw in Miami and what I saw in Buffalo, that this defense suddenly isn't broken from the core. I still think it is, but hey, broken things work sometimes.
All right, before we go to break, let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Yeah, I just wanted to call. And I know football players, they have all those sprains, like Myles Garrett's got a bad shoulder and stuff. But there's a thing called cold-pressed castor oil, and it really works. I've used it on my own shoulders and joints and stuff. After 3-4 days, he'll think he's got a whole new shoulder. If you can relay that to him, that'll be fine.
We just did. We're going to get a lot of home remedies. Now, castor oil is used for arthritis, so I get that. It increases blood flow and all that. Hey, if it works, it works.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Myles Garrett pays somebody a lot of money to take care of all that stuff for him. I'm pretty sure he's probably using whatever remedies are out there to help him. I would think that Myles doesn't like that his shoulder hurts too. So, I'm pretty sure he is taking all the steps possible to be as healthy or to feel as healthy as possible as he can. Because again, he's playing with these injuries. So it's not like he's sitting out, right? He's playing. So I'm pretty sure he wants to feel as good as possible every week. And I'm pretty sure he is looking at every option. And football players are kind of notorious for looking at everything that can help them get an edge on game day.
Quincy Carey and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we will look ahead a little bit. Some interesting numbers about tight ends that play for teams quarterbacked by Deshaun Watson. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier, host of Untitled and Unfiltered Browns coverage. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, I just have a quick question. I just want to say first, I love the show, Go Browns. But I know we're still in the midst of our season and we're fighting to, just to right our ship. But just looking into next year with the free agency going on, what do you think the Browns will actually target? Because we've been talking about how we need defensive tackles and linebackers, but yet we still never go out and get defensive tackles. So what do you think that the Browns will be looking at? I mean, as fans, we know what they should be looking for, but what do you think, the way their front office works, that they'll be trying to upgrade on next season's free agency? Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Quincy, let you take a crack at that. What do you think they do free agency-wise? There's not going to be a whole lot of money, but they'll find a way to get some.
It depends on what the market looks like. I expect them to be more in that post-waiver pickup market than they would be in the first day of free agency market. I've said that the last 2 years, and they've been players in the first day of free agency, so who knows? But I think this is finally the year where that prediction comes true. I wouldn't expect big names. The big names aren't going to be what fixes the defense. I think it's going to be small names that we're going to have to look up, and obviously us as Browns fans, we're going to convince ourselves we're going to be the greatest pickups in the world, right? But I think it's going to be more or less of that. Get ready for it to be a more low-key free agency. I would say what you want to pay attention to is the numbers at specific positions, right? Make sure the acquisitions of numbers at specific positions are the numbers that make you feel comfortable instead of looking at the specific players, right? Because these are going to be positions they're going to pick up that we're not going to have a ton of great statistical information on, just because the nature of tackle play is that it's not a position that statistics tell a great story on. So that's what I would focus on.
Yeah, I would think they'll probably look for a free safety that is a true kind of center field free safety, and a kind of a bigger bodied D tackle that can at least absorb double teams. Just a feel. I think that's what they need, and I'm guessing after seeing the way the ball was run on them, they may look for a bigger body. And it's not going to be a huge name. It's not like they're going to get the top guy. They're just going to get a big guy that can eat up double teams and kind of keep the linebackers a little bit free.
Yes.
Go ahead. No, go.
Yeah, something along those lines.
All right. This is kind of interesting. Kelly Ford tweets this out. Went through, what if every one-possession NFL game had the opposite result? So the what-if standings. And the Browns, if every one-possession game had the opposite result, the Browns would be 8-4, and you see a whole lot of 8-4 teams in the AFC. They'd be atop of the standings, and the 49ers and the Lions would be atop the NFC standings. What that tells you is the Browns have not won a lot of close games, and that is not a good thing.
Yeah, I would say that, that's a good chart to let you know, like, okay, what teams that have really good records aren't really good, right? Like, there are a lot of those teams that aren't good. And there are teams that have bad records that aren't necessarily that bad, right? The old saying is you are what your record says you are. And to a point, that's true. When it comes to qualifying for the playoffs, absolutely, that's who you are. But when it comes to, like, every week trying to play that team, the Browns aren't a 5-7 team. Teams don't look at them like that. Same way that people look at the Vikings. It's not a real 11-1 team. But it kind of tells you and gets you a better grip of what you probably should expect in the playoffs, because the teams that are always ranked that low on those charts that are that high in wins usually aren't the teams that are great playoff teams.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, Texans tight ends in 2020. With Deshaun Watson under center. This is from Cody Sudik. 75 receptions on 99 targets, 913 yards, and 7 touchdowns. So again, if Njoku, remember David Njoku unable to play. That's one of the reasons why the front office wanted him. He would be more athletic than any of the tight ends that were being targeted by Deshaun Watson in that era, and he has the ability to really kind of. I think he has the ability to break out with Deshaun Watson as his quarterback. I really do.
Yeah, I think there's a lot you could do there to add stress to the defense. You're already stressing with Nick Chubb and Deshaun Watson. Now you're going to stress them vertically with David Njoku, and you add on top of that somebody who's already established like Amari Cooper, and you can see where they're thinking, hey, we can slice and dice some of these teams. I think those seam shots are going to be incredibly lethal with a guy like Deshaun Watson and David Njoku. You're talking about routes that really rely on a lot of anticipation in order to get them to work, and they're in the middle of the field, which the reason Watson is paid the money he's paid is because he's comfortable attacking the middle of the field, and the middle of the field's where quarterbacks separate themselves, right? The good and the bad. So, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot there for David. There's going to be a lot there for Deshaun with David, and I think there's going to be a lot there for everybody with David back. I think David's important in both facets of the game, and that's why he got paid.
Yeah, without question. Quincy Carrier, host of Untitled Unfiltered, and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll hear from Deshaun Watson. Take a look at some Joe Burrow numbers that are impressive. Sports for CLE, we'll be right back.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier, host of Untitled and Unfiltered Browns coverage. Browns getting ready for the Bengals down in Cincinnati at 1 o'clock. Deshaun Watson talked about the things he's trying to improve on as he gets ready for that Bengals game.
Just playing football, just being out there, just playing football, doing what I'm doing, just finding myself. All that stuff got to come back. And like I said last week, I don't know when it's going to come back. I don't know if it was going to be last week, this week. My job is to just keep getting better. And when it clicks, it clicks, and everyone will feel that. So, like I said, just keep improving, keep trying to do my best to make sure that the team is up and up to the challenge and trying to, score points and win games.
Yeah, and Quincy, I kind of think it may click all at once. I don't know that it's going to be a gradual thing. I think it's kind of going to be like, oh yeah, this is what, the speed of the game kind of slows down for him back to what it used to be.
You know what was interesting? Because I listened to this press conference, I think he would even agree with me here. I don't think the game was moving that fast for him, for a dude that was away for 700 days. Because it's not what it, like when you see, I would point to two guys. If you ever want to see two guys where the game's moving too fast for them. Johnny Manziel, 2014 rookie year tape, and Malik Willis this year, right? When you watch those are guys who are evading the pocket and just running because oh my God, like everything just closed. Like before they can even know it's open, it closed on him. Deshaun didn't look like the game was fast for him. It just looked like some of his mechanics were rusty, right? That's really where it felt like the breakdown was, because honestly, outside the one interception, and I would say his mechanics were even rusty on that interception, which is what led to it, because he just didn't make the DB commit enough with his eyes. Every mistake that he made was really a mechanical mistake instead of oh my God, the game's moving so fast, I didn't see it kind of a mistake. And I think that kind of thing, I mean, it can clear itself up today. It could clear itself up in a week or two. But I think that's really what we're looking at. The game doesn't look fast to him, right? Like, he was able to come out, throw some quick stuff, get some quick slants in. That's stuff that quarterbacks can't do if it's moving fast for them. He was comfortable in the pocket. He hung in there for a pretty healthy amount of time during the game. There were moments where he could have stayed in just a little bit longer, but that's more about familiarity with the offense than it is the game moving fast. So, I know when quarterbacks struggle, especially after a long layoff, we kind of go to these things where it's like, hey, it's rust, or it's or the game's moving fast for him. I just don't think it was the game was moving fast for him. And that could be a good thing. Well, I think that's probably a good thing. I think there's no way to flip it into a bad thing. But I feel like he was just, his mechanics were rusty. And that was pretty much, I felt like, what was holding him back in that game.
Yeah, I think it clicks in pretty quickly, though. I don't think it's like a gradual thing, I guess. What I'm saying
what
is
he needs?
It's going to get in, and it's going to be what we expected it to be, I think.
He needs a good hit. You know what I mean? Like, when you're going through a slump as a batter, you just need a pop one. And you're like, all right, there we go. I'm not thinking about my mechanics.
Right.
Same thing with the shooter in basketball, where, like, I just need to make a real tough three. And then I'm not thinking about my mechanics anymore, right? I feel like he was thinking about his mechanics, and he never got that big play to where he could be like, okay, I'm back, right? He needs the, okay, I'm back, double home run hit, like that kind of thing. And if I'm Stefanski, I try to make sure that I find a way to put something in the playbook to give him that big play. Okay, you're back. Now you don't got to think about your mechanics, because, again, it didn't look like the game was moving fast. It didn't look like he didn't realize what he was seeing. It looked like he was getting to the right read, the right key at a fast pace. The thing that looked like it was just sloppy to me was his mechanics, and I felt like that was more or less, I haven't done this in a while, and I'm not trusting my body to do what I know I can do. So you're thinking about your mechanics, right? It's like your golf swing, where you're thinking about how you got to set your feet. And when you're in that zone where you got to think about it, you're going to be a terrible golfer, right? Same thing goes with throwing. And I think that's what he just did not have. He just needs to get that one off to where he can be like, all right, cool, I don't got to think about it no more. And he just didn't have that in this game. I think his best throw was like, 20 yards? It was wide open.
And there were a couple where it was like, okay, that's kind of what we expected. But yeah, there were not as many of them as you would like. This is from Pro Football Focus. So Joe Burrow, you remember, had the appendicitis, was less than 100%. So the Bengals started off 0-2. Burrow didn't look good. Since that start, 90.8 passer ranking, second in the league. 22 touchdown passes, second in the league. A 111.4 rating, first. 5 turnover-worthy plays, the fewest. What I'm getting at, he's playing pretty well, and the Browns' loss is in that mess that's been so good.
Yeah, he's been balling. He has been balling. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's good. You know what I mean? I think we all knew this for a while after that LSU year, that he would be this good, but he's really, really good for anybody who had any doubts. He's definitely proving them wrong. No, he's really good. He's playing at a top 5 level. And when you're playing a quarterback at that level, they're always tough to beat, no matter how well you match up against them. But the Browns' job is to neutralize them, and Myles Garrett's number 1 on that list. So the best way to stop a quarterback who's throwing nothing but touchdowns and not giving you interceptions is to get to him before he can throw the ball, right? Like, that's how you beat that kind of guy. So that's going to be on Myles.
All right, before I let you go, what are some keys to this one? You mentioned that with Burrow, without question. Offensively, what do you think the Browns? What do we need to see from the Browns if they're going to win this game offensively?
I need Deshaun to hit that double. You know what I mean? I need Deshaun to make that double throw where he just fits one in the coverage. He feels real good about it so he can get out of his own head about some of his mechanics. And I think you'll see a much better Deshaun Watson once you see that. You know, maybe it'll be in a matter of he gets like a 40-yard run in a clutch situation, or maybe he makes a real tough 3rd and 10. I need him to get that throw, to get that moment where he pops for him, and then he's like, all right, cool, I don't got to think about it. I think that's the biggest problem he has right now. So that offensively will open up everything else. Nick Chubb, if you start getting Deshaun Watson going, and they have to go from he might be back in their defensive game plan for Deshaun might be back to what he was to, oh man, he looks pretty good. You know, that's going to open up things massively for everybody. Him on the ground, Nick Chubb on the ground, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Amari Cooper. So if you want to open this thing up offensively, I think it's keen, and this is where some of the play calling stuff becomes about the people, right? This is a people business at the end of the day. That's what Kevin needs to do, is he needs to look at that film and go, okay, what was wrong? If it's all mechanical stuff, maybe he's in his head about his mechanics. Maybe he needs to just pop one, and I need to find a way to get a softball into this script early on, right? Maybe there's a coverage bet that I'm going to make about the Bengals, but you want to get that softball lined up for him so he can crack it out the park and he can get that double so he can stop thinking about some of his mechanics.
Quincy Carrier, host of Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage, is always great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Quincy.
No problem.
All right, Quincy Carrier, make sure you check him out. Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage, really good stuff. Check him out on YouTube. You can see it. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Ashley Bastock will join us from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Browns getting ready to head down to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals, game they simply have to have if they're going to keep any legitimate chances of making the playoffs alive. Deshaun Watson, how do you get him going? How do you get him back to being Deshaun Watson? Met with the media today, was asked if running the ball could help him get back in the groove, so to speak.
I just let the game come to me. So if it allows me to make plays with my feet and my legs, then I'm going to do that. If I need to sit in the pocket and make the throws, I'm going to do that. So I can't go into a game thinking I'm going to do one more than the other. I just got to let the game come to me so we can try to be successful.
Again, Deshaun Watson talking about trying to get things rolling. Let's welcome in Ashley Bastock, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. And Ashley, there's a lot of philosophies. How do you get Deshaun feeling comfortable? He made a really valid point right there.
Yeah, and I think for me, after watching him against the Texans, I think number one, and he admitted this today, my colleague Mary Kay Cabot asked him specifically about this. There was obviously a lot surrounding that game, right? It was not only the first game he played in 700 days, which I think had a lot to do with it, but he also returned to Houston for the first time, the city where he began his career, where all of these sexual misconduct allegations first arose. So I think the reception he got, it's not something he's used to. He was pretty beloved for most of his time in Houston, especially because of his charitable work, things he did along those lines. And then obviously these allegations rose up. He requested a trade before these allegations became to light. So I think it was just a lot for him emotionally to have to deal with on top of physically. So I do think, it is a matter of shaking that rust off through getting more game reps. I don't think there's a way to replicate a lot of the game reps in terms of, hey, like a guy is getting ready to hit you, the speed of a game. There's a lot of work you can do away from the game, but really games are where you get those sort of things down and get used to those things again. So I really think it's just a matter of him getting more of those reps.
Yeah, and you hope it clicks in sooner rather than later. I know the Orange and Brown Talk podcast has dealt with this. Should we be concerned about the rust, or are you not at that point just yet?
I am not too concerned about the rust. I don't think it's a long-term issue necessarily that they're dealing with, right? I think it's mostly, for me, just kind of getting him in games more. And 700 days is a long time. A lot of his teammates, when we asked them something to the effect of, can you imagine not playing this long and having to go out there and no is kind of the resounding answer, that this is a lot to have to deal with. And for him, he brought up a point, I believe it was after the game, that, everyone else, this is week 13 or whatever it is now. For him, it's week 2. It is a big discrepancy between a guy who's playing in his second game of the year and these guys who are playing in their 13th game of the year going against the Bengals. So I do think that it's a lot to have to kind of catch up to. And we're seeing that. I think we saw that against the Texans.
The other thing, Deshaun Watson's a guy that's really accurate. He, quote unquote, throws guys open and kind of throws with anticipation. He was asked about that, talent and skill that he has and kind of translating it to a new offense.
It is pretty tough, because every receiver is different, especially on different routes. With DPJ and Coop and D-Bell, all those guys are different route runners. So being able to know how they're going to come out, when they're going to come out, how they're going to come out, and where they're going to be, it takes a little bit of time. But, I got to be able to adjust quick, especially if you want to be successful. And that's my mindset, is just trying to get extra reps, watch extra tape, and just let them know what I'm thinking and try to see what they're thinking on certain routes.
When you watch the film back, I guess, were you happy with your footwork, or were you overstriding, or anything you want to correct in that area?
Yeah, it was just overall just fundamentals, just my feet work, just making sure my base is, staying tight as much as possible, making sure I'm trusting the O-line in the pocket, and just making sure I'm trusting my eyes and my feet, because if I can do that and know where I want to go with the ball, then we could be very, very successful.
And Ashley, when I hear him talk, it's interesting. You always hear him talk, see what they're thinking, let them know what I'm thinking. He says that of his receivers and of Kevin Stefanski. It's really interesting that, it's a consistent message from him.
Yeah, I think he's really kind of prioritized that talking with his teammates, on and off the field. Off the field, it was interesting last week to hear from Jadeveon Clowney, who of course played with Deshaun Watson. His first 2 years in Houston was when they both overlapped there. And he said, compared to when Deshaun was a rookie and in his second year in the league, he thinks now he's much more communicative. That back then he would just kind of come in and be a guy who wanted to do his work, stay focused on that, go home. But you really do kind of get to see it firsthand, the way he kind of brings everyone in this locker room together. And he's really, I think, made it a priority to get to know guys all over this team, to try to get that bonding going. And I think maybe he made that a priority because he knew he was going to have to miss some games here at the beginning of the year. And I do think since he's come back on the field, you've heard him talk about how important it was for him to listen to Jacoby and how Jacoby handled those cadences, how he was talking to guys in huddles. Because he wanted to make, note of that to, I think, make this transition a little bit easier. And of course, with those things, it is going to be different guy to guy, but he really, I think, has prioritized that communication. And now, having dealt with what he did in Houston last week, just kind of knowing like, hey, it's these fundamentals that I need to be more focused on with my own game and, keep that communication going.
Again, I know this is something you dealt with the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Is there a scenario where Jacoby Brissett should play for the Browns?
I kind of am of the mind that I don't know necessarily if like you would ever, we had this discussion in the context of, like if the world was ending tomorrow and this game depended on it, would you rather start Jacoby or Deshaun? And I think like in that context, in that made up vacuum that we talked about for a fun conversation, I think I would pick Jacoby in that situation just because Deshaun did look rusty the last time we saw him. But, I do think there are instances I would be for using Jacoby, especially we saw how automatic he was on those sneaks for the most part. If you want to throw him in then for 1 or 2 plays, great. But I think you kind of have to let Deshaun Watson ride this rust out a little bit because that's the only way to get rid of it is giving him game reps. And, I think technically are the Browns still in the playoff hunt? Yes, absolutely. The problem is it's getting less and less likely by the week. These AFC games have just not gone their way, especially the way the other teams in their division and what their records are now. It still, I think, is going to be a tough road to make the playoffs this year. And when the Browns executed this trade, the reality is it wasn't a trade to try to win a Super Bowl this season. Of course, that would have been very nice. That would be very nice if they were somehow miraculously able to do that at 5-7 now. But I just think it's for the future. That's how this franchise thinks. They don't think for the next year. They think 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road on what this team is going to look like. So I think it's really important that they let him work through these rough patches and get him acclimated. And I think it's also really important to kind of get an idea to see what else you may need on this team. Like what is going to help Deshaun Watson be really successful when he has a full season with you in 2023, and what other pieces do you maybe still need to accomplish that?
Yeah, and it gives Kevin Stefanski an idea of this is what he does really well in my system, and that's important. Yeah. He has to know that from game number 1 next season.
Yeah, it's an art, I think, when you are a play caller in the NFL. It's an art and a science. It's this weird combination of the two, but it's important for Kevin Stefanski as the play caller and as the designer of this offense to know how Deshaun Watson, can be most effective and what he likes to do and what they can be successful when they're calling plays for him. So I do think that is also a really, really important element of all of this.
Ashley Bastock, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll turn our attention to the defense and the Bengals. We'll hear from Joe Woods. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details. We continue talking Browns with Ashley Bastock from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Browns lost another starting linebacker in Sione Takitaki, tore his ACL out for the year.
Joe Woods, defensive coordinator, talked about the challenges of facing the Bengals and replacing another starting linebacker.
When you play these guys, they're so explosive on offense. And they have players all over the field. I think they won the last 4, beat Kansas City 3 times in a row. Probably nobody's done that. But they're playing at a really high level. So for us, it's, our playmakers have to show up. And, defensively, you just want to have a simple plan where the guys can play fast.
Joe, you guys are on that play, how big of a loss that is, and I mean not just from a standpoint of he kind of had transitioned into that Mike role for you guys, but he seems like he's like just about everyone's favorite, one of their favorite guys on the team.
Yeah, everybody loves Talk. He loves the game, great competitor, leadership qualities, and him going down, that hurt everybody. I talked to him this morning when I saw him, and I know he'll bounce back. But yeah, we lost a big part of our defense there. But at the same time, it's an opportunity for other guys to step up.
And Ashley, you wrote an article just about the linebackers and kind of dealing with that revolving door. Take us through that, what you found out and what they're having, how they're thinking.
Yeah, I talked to Jacob Phillips in the locker room yesterday, who's one of these linebackers who unfortunately has suffered a season-ending injury. He was the second of which, of course, Anthony Walker Jr. was the first middle linebacker. He suffered a season-ending knee injury, ruptured his quad tendon against the Steelers in Week 3. Jacob Phillips did it a few weeks later. He's injured his pec muscle. That injury required surgery against the Ravens on October 23rd. And then, of course, Sione Takitaki, they had kind of transitioned into a Mike role from a Sam role, which is his normal spot, and then he injures his ACL. So I kind of talked to Jacob, and, it is kind of this mindset of how the heck is this happening at one position? It's just really unfortunate. But he said, it's part of the game. But he said, I was kind of surprised, but not really that surprised getting to know these guys a little bit and their demeanors. But he said their mood has been pretty high, even though all 3 of them are out for the year. And, he has added a guy like Nick Harris, who they've also gotten close to, of course, the guy who won the starting center job, who was out for the year with a knee injury in that first preseason game. And he said the mood is high because they're winning. That winning cures all. And he brought up a great point to me that, we've won 2 in a row, but this is why we go through everything. This is why we go through practices and everything that we go through, risk injury, because we want to win. So when the team is winning, they are still like in a great mood. And I think it says a lot about these guys that, Jacob and Anthony got injured so early in the year. Sometimes when NFL guys, when that happens to them, they'll go and they'll rehab wherever they want to, kind of away from the building. They have that luxury. But these guys have chosen to stick here and stay in Cleveland and stay in Berea and be involved and attend meetings and do all those things. So I think it says a lot about kind of their mentality as a group and their leadership qualities that they have in that room, that they're still wanting to be involved in this way. And it's kind of easy to understand that, yes, winning in that sense kind of does brighten their spirits a little bit, even though they are dealing with a lot as individuals.
So the challenge for the Browns is how do you deal with Joe Burrow? And let's take a look. NFL on CBS tweets this out. Since Week 3, Joe Burrow has the highest passer rating in the NFL, 111.4, better than Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa. He's been that good. Remember, he got off to a tough start because he was banged up, but Burrow has been outstanding.
Yeah, but it's just kind of funny that the Browns sort of have his number. They're 5-0 against Burrow, I think it is, or 4-0, and they're going to be 5-0. I can't remember the exact stat right now, but he's never been able to beat them for as much as he has the number of Kansas City, and maybe it's the other way around when he plays Cleveland. So that is definitely the question of, is he going to figure some things out? But, I think it's more than just like the yips or something to that effect that, he just can't beat the Browns. Like, the Browns are really built to kind of stop a team like the Bengals, who are, very set in their ways. They love the pass game. They rely on the drop back game. Like, the Browns are a team that kind of was built to stop offenses like this defensively, especially. It's why they invested in their secondary. It's especially true, going against the Bengals, who don't have a good offensive line, that Myles Garrett has been so effective throughout his career against Cincinnati. There's only one game where he has not recorded at least one sack against the Bengals, and there are 3 games that he's recorded multiple sacks against the Bengals throughout his career since 2017. And in that time frame, he's missed 3 games, but those are some pretty impressive numbers to go, and it's not really a small sample size against one opponent since they're a division opponent. So I just think this defense is really built to compete with this offense. And yeah, like it looks like, oh, Joe Burrow can't beat the Browns as a result. But I think it's a lot deeper than that the Browns are just kind of built to stop this team and these offenses like the one that the Bengals have.
Before I let you go, when you look at the game against Bengals, what do you have to see from the offense if you think the Browns will be successful? What will enable them to get another win against Joe Burrow from the offensive side of the ball?
Yeah, I think number one, you kind of have to lean into your strengths as a team. And I think, again, that's still this Cleveland running game and get to Nick Chubb early, especially. I think from the Deshaun Watson side of things, it's just about him being settled in, I think a little bit more relaxed and not so jumpy like he was against Houston. I think when you watch that game back, or when I watch that game back, I do think at times, it's like, oh no, like the hit is coming. Like he's very wary of that because, again, he hadn't played in 2 years. So I think it's more just about, okay, the first game is out of the way. The emotions from going back to Houston are not here anymore. This is a big game we have to win. And, when I talked to David Bell today, who told me he thinks he's going to be ready to go, which is good for Deshaun to get another pass-catching weapon back. David mentioned, even though Deshaun went through all of that, like he still is a guy who he's not really seen get fazed by much and who really takes command when he's out there. So I think it's all about that. And will Deshaun be able to develop, I think, a consistent connection in this game with Amari Cooper, with DPJ, with David Bell? They're all very different receivers, which Deshaun pointed out today, and that's true. But, I think he kind of has to get at least one of them going in this game if they're going to be successful and get rolling here.
Ashley Bastock, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. As always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Ashley.
Thank you.
Ashley Bastock. Make sure you check him out. Really good Browns coverage. The Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.